Hey y'all, it's Care. Today's video is a winter reading recommendations video where I'm featuring only thrillers. I've picked out 10 books featuring snow that have really strong elements of suspense or mystery or thrilling plots that are gonna make you not want to put the book down. Something I want to mention really quickly just at the top of this video is that I did not necessarily thoroughly enjoy every single book on this list, but I can kind of put my own personal reading taste aside and recognize that each and every book on this list is adored by a lot of people. So even if I didn't absolutely love it, I didn't want to not put it on a winter thriller reads video if it has a really snowy atmospheric setting and it fits along with all the other books on the list. I just want to go ahead and put all of these in there just in case you've not heard of them or you've not heard much buzz. That's kind of what this list is. So if I get to a book that I wasn't super keen on, I'll let you know just in case your reading tastes really closely align with my personal reading tastes. But I'm going to give you a little blurb about every one, whether I liked it or didn't like it, whatever. Let's just get started. The first one I want to talk about is The Hunting Party by Lucy Foley. Even though this thriller was kind of middle of the road for me, I did really like this setting. It's about this group of friends who goes to spend New Year's Eve together in this isolated cabin up in the snowy mountainous terrain. And at the very beginning of the book, we find out that someone is dead. We don't know who it is. And then after that chapter, we go back in time to how we got to that point of there being a dead person. And every now and then Foley sneaks another chapter in that's in this present day where this murder investigation is going on. And I thought it was a really solid, kind of typical isolated setting thriller. There's somewhere between like 8 to 10 main characters in this book who you have to be pretty familiar with in order to enjoy the story. So if you struggle with something like that, then this one might not be the book for you. But if you like a lot of characters in a book and like going back and getting a lot of the characters' individual backstories in order to figure out how they're all connected in this present day, then I think you might like this one. Next is a classic, The Murder on the Orient Express by Agatha Christie. I read this last December and it was the perfect time of year to do so. This is about a group of strangers who are all traveling on a train when suddenly the train can't go any further because of this snowstorm, and while they are stopped, there's been a murder. I can't remember if the murder occurs before the train is stopped or while it's stopped, but it really doesn't matter. The whole point is that everyone is on this train with this dead person and they know that someone on the train has to be the culprit. So it's a very classic plot that, you know, is still in mysteries and thrillers and suspense books to this day. I think that this writing style is pretty accessible if you're not big on reading classics. I still think this is pretty easy to read, but it's not super page turning if you don't like the style. So like if you start this book and you don't like the way it's written right up front at the beginning, then I don't think you're gonna like it. But if you do, then definitely give it a try. And then let's go ahead and do another one that reminds me of Agatha Christie. That's The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton. I feel like I can't watch a fall recommendations video or a winter recommendations video without seeing this book pop up, but that's just because it's so accurate. This is a classic whodunit mystery with a really modern spin on time and characters, and even though for me, I think I gave this book somewhere between 3 and 4 stars, which isn't bad at all. I did enjoy reading this book, but 1, it is super duper long. 2, there are a ton of characters. The whole point of this book is that this man is stuck at this really grand house and he's reliving the same day over and over again, trying to solve a mystery. And the catch is, each day he wakes up in a new body of somebody else who is also at the house. So he's going day by day trying to solve this murder, and each day when he wakes up in a new body, he gets these new insights that he didn't know the day before. So he has to try to put things together as he goes, and some of his hosts are way more helpful than other hosts that he's like waking up as. And I'm confusing myself just trying to explain what it's about. Reading this book was very much like that as well, but I do think the payoff was really cool at the end, and I loved the setting. It was very mysterious and kind of creepy at times, and I think fall and winter are the 2 seasons that this book would be best read in, just because of how cozy it is. Every time I see this book, I think about wanting to curl up next to a fireplace and read it. Next, I'll mention In a Dark, Dark Wood by Ruth Ware. Even though Ruth Ware isn't exactly the author for me, I really enjoyed this book. It's about this bachelorette party that decides to go stay at this snowed-in cabin in the woods in the middle of nowhere. And while they're there, one of the women starts to see these suspicious things going on outside of the house, like like she might see footprints, or something might be misplaced, something she thought she had put somewhere might be somewhere else. It has those little details building up throughout the story until the end, and yes, the ending is wild and it's kind of stupid, but it is a fun time. I know I'm a pretty big critic of Ruth Ware, but this is a fun book to read in the winter time. I'm gonna go ahead and mention One by One by Ruth Ware as well. If you watched my October wrap-up video, you'll know that I really did not like this book. It didn't work for me as a reader, but so many of my friends love it so much that I didn't want to make a winter thriller recommendations video without including it here, just because it does have the perfect snowy setting. It's about this group of co-workers who takes a work retreat up to this snowy mountain to go skiing, and we find out that one of the women on the trip actually isn't one of the current co-workers. She used to work with these people, and for some reason she's been invited to go with them, and as the plot unfolds we kind of start to realize why she is there. And of course there's conflict amongst the group. People have different motives for doing different things, and then people start dying or going missing. And there's been like this avalanche and they're completely snowed in. They can't get any help and they're all stuck up in this cabin. So it sounded really good to me. I had really high hopes going into it. I thought the characters were a little flat personally, but there are a lot of people who really like these characters, loved this book, so I wanted to include it. So there you go. Then going from One by One to An Unwanted Guest by Sherry Lapena. I didn't love this book, but I think that this is that same trope done just a little bit better. This is about an inn in the Catskill Mountains and this group of people who has come to the inn, and they're strangers to one another. Some are couples, some have gone individually, and of course there's a snowstorm and the power goes out and people start dying, and it's that and then there were none trope of people dying one by one. Sherry's writing style gives me problems sometimes, just because I think that the way she writes isn't as mature as I'm looking for. Maybe sophisticated is a better word. I want a little bit more from her writing style, but she knows how to put a fun plot together. This was really page turning. I got through this in about a day, and it has a fun little twist at the end that I thought was cool and kind of different than other things I had seen from the genre. We can also add I'm Thinking of Ending Things by Ian Reid to this list. It's about this couple who seems to be teetering on the edge of possibly a breakup, and they're driving together to go to the boy's home. The girlfriend is going to meet her boyfriend's parents for the very first time, and as they're driving they're talking about how the roads are gonna get bad and it's gonna be snowy. Later when they're on their way back, there's this whole thing with the snow and the snowstorm. I feel really sorry for you if this is your first time hearing anything about this book, because it's really hard to explain without completely giving it away. If you like really dark, cerebral, psychological thrillers, then this one is definitely for you. I listened to the audiobook of this book and highly recommend it. I do want to get a physical copy just so I could try reading it to see if it's creepy in a different way, but some of the parts in this book, just hearing it narrated to me, oh, it was so creepy and so, like, it was really good. So I recommend that. If you can't get your hands on a physical copy, try the audiobook. And now we're gonna get into my very favorite books that I have on this list. No Exit by Taylor Adams. This was my absolute favorite book of 2019, and this is in my top like 2 or 3 favorite books of all time. This is one of the best books I've ever read. Every time I mention it, I get people in the comments like, that book is not good. I don't care. This is about a girl just trying to make it home for either Thanksgiving or Christmas break, but she's got to drive through the snow to get there, like through a really bad snowstorm. And we find out that her mother is sick, and that's why the stakes seem really higher of when she's like driving on this really dangerous road. And when she eventually gets stranded at this rest area, it makes sense like that her mother is dying and she's really trying to get home in time to be able to see her mother again. So like I just said, eventually she gets to this point where she cannot keep driving. She has to pull over. She stops at a rest area, and when she's inside she meets a group of strangers, and then she finds something horrifying, completely terrifying in one of their cars out in the parking lot. But now at this point they're all stranded together, they can't use the roads, and she has to try to make it overnight or as long as she can with this group of people. And you don't know who's good, you don't know who's bad. It's just straight up good versus evil. It is kind of twisty, but it's also just a really fast-paced thriller of this person is good and this person is evil, and they're going to butt heads, and it is insane. It's really intense and it's pretty graphic, kind of gory at the end. It's not too bad, but it's like, kind of. And I'm kind of pushing it with these last two for 2 completely different reasons. I really couldn't make this list without putting Beartown on the list, even though I don't think it's technically a thriller. This is more like literary fiction or contemporary fiction. This is the most suspenseful book I've ever read, so I don't care, I'm putting it on this list. It's about this boys' junior league hockey team that completely controls the town. Everyone in this tiny Swedish town is obsessed with the hockey team because one, they're just obsessed with the hockey team and they love the boys, they love the sport, whatever. But two, this town's economy really depends on this team because the more successful the team is, the more likely they are to be able to have like a training center built in the town, which would bring them more money, which would make the small businesses do better. So like politically and economically speaking, there are a lot of things going into this hockey team that isn't just them kicking the puck around the field. I also want to say I know absolutely nothing about hockey, and yet when I finished this book I was like, who is gonna take me to a hockey match, a hockey game? Ice hockey is so intense, and I get that after reading this book. In the middle of this book, horrible crime is committed and the hockey team is in the middle of it. So then from there, the entire town is divided on whether they are supporting this hockey team and trying to like keep the ball rolling on their success because they're still advancing throughout their season and they're going to the championship game. But then on the other hand, everyone else is like, no, we can't let these people get away with this. Can you see how I'm just like, my whole face is just lit up talking about this book? This is one of my favorite books of 2020 and it might be #1, but please read it if you've not read it yet. Just please read it. And lastly, Shutter Island by Dennis Lehane. You guys probably didn't know it was coming. This is one of my favorite books ever, but it's not necessarily wintry, but I used to read it every Christmas when I would come home for Christmas break. I can't think about winter books without thinking about this book. Sadly, there's no snow in this one, so there's snow in all of them except for Shutter Island, but there is a really big storm at the end. Let me know if you guys would be interested in this. I'm thinking about making a video of books that feature big storms because I love that when that's thrown into a plot, especially at the main point of contention. Let's throw a hurricane or like a blizzard or some type of horrible storm in there with it just to heighten everything. I love it. Tornadoes too. That's terrifying. Okay, anyway, this book is about these two US Marshals who are called into this isolated prison on an island out in the middle of the ocean. A patient has escaped. They can't find this patient anywhere. So the Marshals come in and they have the task of having to find this missing patient. This is the most psychological of psychological thrillers I have ever read. If you've not read this yet, what are you doing? A lot of people say it's really slow and boring, and I don't personally agree with that. I think this is so fast paced, and this is one of those books that after you read it once and it blows your mind, especially like if you've not seen the movie and you've not read the book and it's not been spoiled for you, oh my gosh, this has the biggest plot twist ever. But once you read it once, then you'll want to go back and read it again like, how did I not see this? So yeah, no snow, but isolated mental hospital and a big rainstorm at the end, which is cool. The rainstorm is cool. The mental hospital is not cool. I meant the rain was cool. Okay. Those are all my winter thriller recommendations. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Please like it if you enjoyed it and subscribe if you would like to see more from me or if you'd like to support me. I hope everyone's having a great day whenever you're watching this. I'll see you in the next video.